is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. Recently I was speaking to a young man and woman who were studying a little bit about Judaism. And they were very curious as to why should a Jew be proud to be Jewish? And it's a question I think that many adults also have, because we go through many trials and tribulations as Jews. We look through Jewish history. We see the situation with Israel amongst many nations that would like to destroy it. We know about our own challenges individually, perhaps in situations that might be trying as Jews. And we perhaps deal with the trials and tribulations of really energizing our Jewish identity. So for that reason, I felt it would be important to try to share with you a little of the reason why we as Jews should be proud. Every nation should be proud. Every people, every color, creed, religion, every nationality should have reasons for pride in who they are. It doesn't mean pride at the expense of unity or respecting another person or feeling even empathy for another person's reason for being who they are. But at the same time, we as Jews have a reason to be able to better understand what it is that makes us Jews and why we should be very proud to be Jewish. And for those of you who are non-Jews who are watching the show, it will perhaps give you a little insight into the makeup of the Jewish people and why we are who we are and where we come from, what we contribute to the world, and why the Jewish people have a very meaningful place in our world and the history and civilization at large. Well, the fact is there are many reasons to be proud. We look in the world around us today and the incredible accomplishments that the Jewish people have made in the land of Israel. If we look around us at the accomplishments of the Jewish people, both in the arts, in the finances, in the culture, in businesses and inventions, the Nobel Prize laureates that have been Jewish, the percentage is just incredible. The amount of people who take a leading role in intellectual fields, in all types of sports activities, in every endeavor you can possibly imagine. Jews strive and have a work ethic, as many others do, to be able to succeed in what they do and make a contribution, to make things a little bit better in this world. And as a result, this is something very special about our people. Well, for some people, pride might mean that they like Jewish food, they like kosher cooking, they like some of the culture of our people, or perhaps they enjoy fasting on Yom Kippur. There are many different reasons why people come with a pride of their peoplehood. And it could be because of things in their childhood that they remember from their grandparents, or just customs that somehow strike a chord with them that make it feel that this is right and this is who I am and I'm proud to be Jewish. But I'd like to go a little bit deeper into the reason for that pride, where it comes from, and who we are going back thousands of years. Fact is, Jewish people date back to the times of Abraham and Sarah. Two people in the middle of a desert, in the Middle East, two people who were giants, who changed the course of all of history and who contributed to monumental changes in the future of all civilization. They brought to the world, through the revelation that God brought to them, a belief in monotheism, in the oneness of all of existence, in the oneness of God, and the close connection that God has and feels with the world at large, with humanity in particular. And this contribution was one that nobody would have imagined at that time, perhaps, except for Abraham and Sarah. Well, nobody would have imagined how revolutionary this concept was, and how much it was going to really be a pace setter for millions, if not billions, of people in the future, as we will soon see. So this is going back 3,800 years to our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, which each and every single one of us as Jews can say that Abraham and Sarah were our great-grandfathers and great-grandmother. And what we find is a story about these people in a wonderful book. This book is called the Torah. This Torah is not just our Bible, it's our family album. It's a story of our peoplehood, the story of our genealogy going back to the beginning of civilization, to find out how we began as a people growing as one family in a desert, in a place where there was little civility, little decency, lots of idol worship, and where Abraham and Sarah literally stood out as people unlike anybody else. In fact, the word Hebrew, which is the nickname given to Abraham, is a word that comes from the Hebrew for Ivri. And Ivri means from the other side, referring to the other side of the river. And as a result, we see from the very beginning that Abraham and Sarah were seen as people who were different in everything they did. And their children, as the Torah relates, went through many, many trials and tribulations and many different types of activity until they were slaves literally in Egypt for hundreds of years to the Egyptians. And at that time we find that they went through many, many difficult years as slaves. But what happened was that 3,300 years ago, a momentous occasion took place. After the children of Israel, the children of Abraham and Sarah, had grown to be a great nation, and after they were enslaved in Egypt, they were freed, and they were brought to Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, the covenant that God had made with Abraham and Sarah was sealed in public, where God spoke publicly to 3 million people standing at Mount Sinai. In fact, Judaism is the only religion in the world where we believe the revelation that God made to our people was not on the basis of revelation to one person, but on the basis of a revelation to 3 million people simultaneously. And so forceful is that message that really what that means is that a revelation at Mount Sinai was one that so many people saw and so many people agreed to write down in the Torah. I mean, God wrote it down in the Torah, but we all transmitted it from generation to generation. So what that does is it gives us a little bit of an idea that for this Torah to be a made-up story, a whole generation at one point would have had to decide and conspire against their children to say that this is just a Baba Maisa, or that this is just a story that's made up, and to all of a sudden come forth with some fiction. But the fact is, with 3 million people having seen it, and 3 million people having received the Torah afterwards, when Moses brought it down from Mount Sinai, and it was written during the 40 years that the Jews traveled in the desert before they entered into the Promised Land, we see that our grandparents, great-grandparents, all agreed to this Torah being a real truth. Now, we continue, and we see more of what this Torah that God gave in Mount Sinai was. We see the Ten Commandments, and we see how lofty the principles of the Torah were. Lofty in the sense that not only 3,300 years ago were the principles lofty because they were very high values, but even now, today, these principles for all of humanity provide goals for us as far as how to uplift our value system to the highest of ethics, the highest of moral conduct, the highest of means to be able to live a life, but not a life that is disconnected from reality, not a life that is far away from having families and far away from being involved in day-to-day business, but a way of life that is well-grounded. Because in Judaism, part of our way of life, and I say way of life because Judaism is not just a composite of religious beliefs. It's a way of life that we incorporate the great values from Abraham and Sarah, from all of our forefathers and mothers, from all of those who stood at Mount Sinai. We incorporate it into business ethics. We incorporate it into our home life, our kitchen, our bedroom, our playroom, our vacations, our synagogue activities, and incorporate it into many different aspects so that there's no dichotomy between the way we conduct ourselves in the synagogue and the way we conduct ourselves in business or at the home. Because all the truths that were given in Mount Sinai apply equally to all of them. This is part of the uniqueness of Judaism, the unique message that Judaism has brought to the world. Because as monotheists, believing in one God, we cannot believe in any dichotomy. We cannot believe that God exists only in the heavens and not in the earth, or only in the synagogue and not in my home, because that would be a denial of God's oneness. The message of Judaism is a message of oneness that goes so deep as to bring us the idea that even internally, between our heart and our minds, our emotions and our intellect, there needs to be oneness as well. There needs to be that ability to incorporate oneness in everything that we do. And that was a message at the time that was truly revolutionary, It gave the Jewish people a special purpose in this world, a special mission to be able to be a light amongst the nations, to be able to bring this message of oneness in everything, to all of civilization, to people from all walks of life, to Jews and non-Jews alike. Never asking that somebody convert to our belief system, because our Judaism is really based on a covenant made between Abraham and Sarah that was reserved for their children. Of course, Judaism has always accepted converts, those who want to join the Jewish people, but the bottom line is that this peoplehood is on the basis of the children of Abraham and Sarah. And as a result, we have the mandate from our prophet Isaiah, from many other great prophets and leaders, and from the Torah itself, to be a light amongst the nation, to try to tikkun olam, to make the world a better place, to fix the world even, and to be able to do things in our day-to-day life that will make the world better. Well, this message that came with the birth of this great nation, a nation that grew from year to year, that established wonderful, beautiful temples in the city of Jerusalem, that lived in peace with its neighbors, that was able to truly be an example of inspired, of a holy, of a very special nation. These people also grew to have much influence on the world around them, on the non-Jewish nations around them as well. In fact, as we all know, Christianity is based on the principles of Judaism, based on the teachings of the Torah, based on the ethics and the morals that Judaism brought to the world directly from our forefathers, our foremothers, Abraham and Sarah. So that the Christianity, which presently with over perhaps 1 billion people, and the billions of Christians and non-Jewish Gentiles who have been actively involved in their own religious beliefs connected to Christianity, are themselves, in effect, incorporating some of those same beliefs that came from this giant of a couple, Abraham and Sarah, who lived in the desert so long ago. And then we see even with the Muslim religion, that established hundreds and hundreds of years after Christianity. But again, it was a desert religion in a desert filled with all types of idol worship and different types of religions and idols and lifestyles. That nevertheless, when it came to establishing a religion like Islam, it was again based on the monotheism, based on the belief system, the morals and the values, the demanding for truth that comes from the teachings of Abraham and Sarah. So much so that even though it was thousands of years after Abraham and Sarah lived, still the Muslim religion claimed a direct lineage back to Yishmael, Yishmael being the son of Abraham, because that special connection was there. So in fact, the three great religions of our modern Western civilization all date back to this couple who are our great-great-grandparents. And that, I think, is something that is a tremendous source of pride for any Jew who realizes how special our family is and how they have come from a very special family lineage. And going on, we see that this was really almost a mission statement, that this Torah that we have teaches us great things about life, about the purpose of the creation, about the relationship with our Creator, about mitzvot, commandments, specific deeds that God wanted us to do. God created the world, God gave it as a gift to all of creation, to all of humanity, to Jew and non-Jew alike, gave mitzvahs or commandments to the non-Jewish population and mitzvahs and commandments to the Jewish population. Both are necessary, both are needed, both are important to complement each other in the process of bettering this world and making it the world that God wants it to be. The fact is, though, that over the centuries there has been much anti-Semitism as well. Jews have been a target of much hatred. The eternal hatred, it is called. A hatred of the Jewish people, which is not necessarily logical or understood by Jew or non-Jew. And as a result, we see through history, and we see presently in the Middle East and in other areas around the world, how that hatred, unfortunately, is alive and well. And we have faced situations where Jews ask themselves, why are we persecuted? Why is it that we are constantly looked at in that way and that we are hated so much by so many. In fact, if we look through history, we will see that there is a mystery of the survival of the Jewish people. Because the Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, the Hittites, the Moabites, the Roman civilizations have risen and fallen. But somehow, to nobody's intellectual or logical understanding, the Jews still not only are surviving, but are thriving. And that is a covenant that Jews have with God, that we will always be in existence. It will be impossible to wipe out the Jewish people. Arnold Toynbee, who was a very famous historian, wrote a history of the world. And when he wrote this history, what he did was he did not include the Jewish people. Why? Because when he was asked why he didn't include the Jewish people, and in fact, by some he was accused of being anti-Semitic as a result, he explained that his take on world history, on the rise and fall of civilizations, was based on the fact that civilizations come and go, that peoples come and go. But the Jewish people did not fit his pattern. There was no way to be able to fit them into his view of history because they smashed the mold. And he admitted that there was an exception to his rule, which were the Jews. In MIT, many years ago, there was a study done about the whole history of the world and about the rise and fall of the Jewish people. And the fact is that when you're looking at all of the bloodbaths, the pogroms, the wars, the millions and millions of Jews who've been killed, or persecuted over years, that there's no way of understanding how the Jewish people still exist. In fact, according to this MIT study, the Jews should have been extinct, like all other peoples were extinct, hundreds of years ago. There's no logical explanation for why we are still around. If it wasn't for this persecution and the murders that took place to take away from our populace and the assimilation which took place, where Jews sometimes not proud of their Jewish heritage and not able to live with the fact that they were different from their surrounding nation and not truly understanding how they do have a special purpose in this world. And therefore they left their Jewish identity. But if it was not for that fact, we should be a people of 1 billion people. Take the Chinese people today. Over 1 billion Chinese people. They started also as 15 million over 3,000 years ago. But without the persecution that the Jewish people experienced, they've grown to be 1 billion people. Think of it. If we were 3 million just 3,300 years ago, we should also be 1 billion. Today we are only 15 million. And as a result, our growth over those 3,300 years has been minuscule due to this fact. So each and every single Jew alive today is a special link, is a special survivor, so to say, of this whole process of the generations and generations that date back to Abraham and Sarah, and are carrying a special torch today for our generation, for the whole of humanity and civilization to be able to benefit from their presence and from their message, their knowledge of Torah, their knowledge of the experience that happened in Mount Sinai that they bring to the rest of the world. And it's this uniqueness, I think, also, that each and every single one of us can be very proud of. I want to read for you also a very special selection. I got it off the internet. I had read it many times before, but I wanted to be able to read it to you directly. It's from an essay written by Mark Twain. It's called Concerning the Jews, and it was published in Harper's Magazine in March 1898. And he had seen some anti-Semitism in Vienna at the time, and was very perplexed as to who these Jewish people are who are causing such emotional reactions because of different things that perhaps have happened during the course of history. And in writing, he did quite a lengthy study of who and what these people are. And in his conclusion, he writes the following. If the statistics are right, the Jews constitute but 1% of the human race. In fact, it's much less than that. It suggests a nebulous dim puff of stardust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. Properly, the Jew ought hardly to be heard of, but he is heard of, has always been heard of. He is as prominent on the planet as other people, and his commercial importance is extravagantly out of proportion to the smallness of his bulk. His contributions to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, and abstruse learning are also a way out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. He has made a marvelous fight in this world in all ages, and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. And he concludes his long essay by asking the following question: what is the secret of his immortality? This again is an essay written by Mark Twain in 1898 about the mystery of the Jew. And this is a question which many have asked and many Jews have asked. And we wonder, we don't feel that there's anything special about us. We feel like we're regular people, regular human beings, trying to make a living, trying to pay the mortgage, bring up good children, just like our neighbors, doing everything the same way, but trying our best to be able to make that connection to life. And the fact is that our immortality is based on a promise given by God to Abraham and Sarah, that their seed will be as the stars of the heaven and as the sands of the ocean, and that we'll be able to help the world become a better place in our small little way, to make that tremendous contribution of bringing Torah, of bringing knowledge of God's wisdom, of the manufacturer's handbook, to all of civilization, so that every human being can be connected, can fulfill God's mandate and God's purpose, to create heaven on earth, to try our best, to do everything we can to make God comfortable in this world, to do mitzvot, do good deeds, think good deeds, speak good deeds, and do things that are going to, in fact, create out of this world an ideal place, a place where we can draw God into our daily mundane life. Because that's really what God wants from us. God wants us to make him part of our life. And this is the message that Abraham and Sarah had. This is the message that Moses had on Mount Sinai. This is the message of the prophets. This is the message that Jews have brought to every discipline they've been involved in, of how do we make the world a better place. And it's this uniqueness, this sense of purpose, that has driven the Jewish people for so long to try to create that type of world. And this, in fact, is the goal of Mashiach, of trying to bring about a world, a messianic era, an era that will no longer have the influence of evil energy, of negative energy, where it will have flapped all of its wings and done all it could do, but it will have served its purpose. And the original creator, God himself, will in fact be in a situation where God will be clearly to all of us, with our eyes of flesh and blood, the creator of the universe, the creator of all of us, the one who is setting the agenda, the one who gave us the mitzvot in order to be able to become better people. And this is the uniqueness of our Jewish people. Yes, we can be proud about many of their accomplishments, proud of many of the people in our history, proud of what has been accomplished in the land of Israel, proud of so many of our own personal accomplishments, as each and every human being can be proud of their accomplishments. The Jewish people also, as a people living almost against the tide of all of history, almost in a natural existence because of the fact that we've been able to survive for so many thousands of years against any possible adversity. This is an accomplishment that every Jew can be very, very proud of. Very proud of. And this is something that comes with knowing more about what Judaism is. We are called the people of the book, because being Jewish doesn't come just by being born Jewish. It doesn't come just by having a bris. It comes through knowledge, through study, through picking up a phone and calling a phone service to be able to find out more about what the Torah is. And there are plenty of them. Or going on the web in order to find out what Torah is all about. Our website, chabadofcomac.com, or chabad.org for that matter, has unbelievable amount of information to help to lift our spirits to understand what are we proud of. For a person to be proud, they need to know what they're proud of. So as I said, being Jewish just doesn't come naturally. The pride doesn't come naturally. It comes through experiencing Judaism. It comes through experiencing the beauty of the Jewish life, of the Jewish perspective, of Jewish insights, of Jewish wisdom, and of Jewish practice. A little delicious kosher food doesn't hurt also, and the celebration of a Shabbos, and the dancing of a celebration, whether it be Purim or Simchat Torah, or the deep introspection of Yom Kippur or some other holidays in prayer, and a knowledge of who and what we are and why we do what we do, brings one to pride. So especially those of you out here who have children, Jewish children, that you'd like to instill pride with, it doesn't happen automatically. It happens with effort, happens through investing, it happens through paying a premium. And the premium, thank God, in our day and age in America is not through self-sacrifice and not through having to be the recipients of difficult challenges to our Judaism. To the contrary, today Jews are welcome to practice their Judaism as much as they would like. It's just a matter for us to exercise that right in order to be able to know what it means to be proud to be a Jew. And this, in fact, is what we are all about at the Jewish Spotlight. And I hope that this explanation of Jewish pride will give you a little bit of a sense of how great life is in general, and specifically how wonderful it is for those of us who are Jewish to be Jewish and to be proud to be Jewish, as we hope that every human being should be proud to be who they are. Understanding of others, always accepting of others, and accepting of other perspectives and other beliefs, but nevertheless always knowing that to be a Jew is a special label that we carry with us, a special responsibility, and a zchut that we all hope we should be able to fulfill. So think about it, and I hope we gave you some food for thought, as we always try to do with the Jewish Spotlight. And we'll see you next week, the same station, same time. I hope we will have a good opportunity to come back next week with some answers to what Jewish pride means to you. Shalom.
Simchas hagiyulo, hine hine Moshiach bo. Sisu v'simchu b'simchas hagiyulo, hine hine Moshiach bo. Sisu v'simchu b'simchas hagiyulo, hine hine Moshiach bo. Sisu v'simchu b'simchas hagiyulo, hine hine Moshiach bo. Hine hu bo Moshiach.